My son-in-law said you can stay if you are ready to become our babysitter. I changed the diaper, then changed the deed. They didn't know I paid for the home and my name is in the document and could take it back with one call. I did not ask to stay. The afternoon light filters through the kitchen window as I fold the last of little Emma's onesies, my arthritic fingers moving with practiced precision. The fabric is soft against my weathered hands, a small comfort in this house that no longer feels like home. 23 years I lived here with Harold before he passed, 23 years of laughter echoing through these halls. Now the silence feels heavy, punctuated only by my son-in-law Marcus's voice cutting through the air like a blade. "Listen, Dorothy," Marcus says, leaning against the granite countertop I once picked out with such care. His arms are crossed, his expression carrying that particular brand of condescension reserved for the elderly and inconvenient. "Sarah and I have been talking. With the baby and my promotion, we need more space. More help." He pauses, letting the words settle like dust. "You can stay, but there's a condition." The word hangs between us, sharp and cold. I continue folding, my movements steady despite the tremor that's begun in my chest. 34 years old, this man, and he speaks to me like I'm a child who needs instruction. Like I'm a burden to be managed rather than the woman who raised the daughter he claims to love. The afternoon sun catches the wedding ring I still wear, Harold's matching band resting in my jewelry box upstairs, a reminder of when I was half of something whole. "If you're going to live here, you need to earn your keep," Marcus continues, his tone growing more assured with each word. "Emma needs constant care, and childcare is expensive. You can babysit, do the housework, help with meals. It's perfect, you get a place to live, we get the help we need." His smile doesn't reach his eyes, and I see Sarah hovering in the doorway, her face a mask of careful neutrality. My daughter, my precious girl, saying nothing while her husband reduces me to unpaid labor. I set down the tiny sock I've been holding, its pastel pink fabric so delicate it seems to whisper of innocence lost. "I see," I say quietly, my voice carrying none of the storm building inside me. Marcus nods, satisfied by my apparent acquiescence. He doesn't know that I've been making plans of my own, that the phone calls I've been taking aren't from church friends offering condolences. He doesn't know about the safety deposit box downtown, or the documents that rest inside it like sleeping lions. For now, I simply nod and watch him walk away, his footsteps confident on the hardwood floors Harold and I installed 30 years ago. If Marcus wants to play chess, he'll soon discover he's been playing against a grandmaster. The baby monitor crackles to life at 3:17 a.m., Emma's cries piercing the darkness like tiny daggers of need. I rise from the narrow bed in what used to be Harold's study, my bones protesting the sudden movement. The hardwood floor is cold beneath my bare feet as I pad down the hallway, past the master bedroom where Sarah and Marcus sleep undisturbed behind their closed door. The irony isn't lost on me. I, the grandmother, the unpaid help, am the one answering the call while the parents dream on. Emma's nursery glows with the soft light of the seahorse nightlight I bought her, its gentle rotation casting dancing shadows on walls painted the palest shade of yellow. Sarah insisted on gender-neutral colors, as if the baby's future could be contained within carefully chosen paint swatches. I lift Emma from her crib, her small body warm and trusting against my chest, and I'm transported back 32 years to when Sarah was this small, this dependent on me for everything from food to comfort to love. "Shoo, little one," I whisper, settling into the rocking chair that once belonged to my own mother. The motion is automatic, born of decades of mothering, though my back aches with each gentle sway. Emma's cries fade to hiccups, then to the soft breathing of contentment. In these quiet moments I remember who I used to be, not just Harold's wife or Sarah's mother, but Dorothy Mae Pemberton, the woman who once commanded boardrooms and negotiated million-dollar deals. The woman who built something from nothing and then watched it all slip into careful trusts and hidden investments when age made me invisible. The house settles around us with familiar creaks and sighs, sounds I know as intimately as my own heartbeat. This place holds 43 years of my life within its walls, the laughter, the tears, the Christmas mornings and birthday celebrations. Every nail was chosen with intention, every room designed with love. Marcus and Sarah walk through these spaces as if they've always belonged to them, as if history began the day they said, "I do," and decided my utility outweighed my autonomy. By the time I lay Emma back down, the eastern windows show the first blush of dawn. I should return to my bed, catch another hour of sleep before the household wakes and my duties as the invisible help begin again. Instead, I find myself in the kitchen, making coffee in the machine Harold bought me for our last anniversary. The familiar ritual grounds me, reminds me that I am more than the sum of my current circumstances. As I sip the dark brew from my favorite mug, the one that says "World's Best Mom" in Sarah's childhood handwriting, I allow myself to remember what it felt like to be seen, to be valued, to matter. Those days aren't as far behind me as Marcus might think. The manila envelope arrives on a Thursday morning, thick and official-looking against the day's collection of catalogs and bills. I'm wiping Emma's face clean of pureed carrots when the mail slot clanks shut, and something about the sound makes my pulse quicken. Sarah barely glances up from her laptop where she's typing away at her blog about modern motherhood, the irony of which isn't lost on me as I'm the one actually raising her child. "Just bills, Mom," she says absently, not bothering to look at what I'm holding. But I can feel the weight of importance in this envelope, can see my name typed across the front in formal lettering that speaks of lawyers and legal matters. It's from Peterson, Hartley and Associates, the firm that's been managing certain aspects of my affairs since Harold's passing. The same firm that Marcus would recognize instantly if he bothered to pay attention to anything beyond his own reflection. I tuck the envelope into my cardigan pocket, feeling its edges press against my ribs like a secret heartbeat. Emma gurgles contentedly in her high chair, her tiny fist wrapped around a piece of soft bread, and I'm struck by how much trust this little one places in me. She doesn't see an inconvenience or free labor. She sees Grandma Dorothy, the woman who soothes her fears and feeds her needs. If only her parents possessed such clarity. Later, after Sarah leaves for her yoga class and Marcus disappears into his home office for another important call, I retreat to my small room with Emma sleeping peacefully in my arms. The envelope opens with a whisper of expensive paper, revealing documents that would make Marcus's ambitious heart skip several beats if he understood their significance. Updates on the Pemberton Holdings portfolio, adjustments to the family trust, notifications about property transfers that have been pending Harold's estate settlement. Numbers that dance across the pages like promises of power. The afternoon sun slants through the window as I review each page carefully, my reading glasses perched on the end of my nose. Emma stirs in her portable crib, making the soft sounds of dreaming babies, and I'm reminded of how dreams can take decades to unfold. Harold and I started with nothing but determination and matching wedding bands. We built an empire one careful decision at a time, one calculated risk after another. Marcus sees an old woman who needs managing. He has no idea he's living under the same roof as the woman who could buy and sell his precious career 3 times over. The irony tastes sweet on my tongue as I fold the papers back into their envelope. Some revelations are worth savoring slowly, like fine wine aged to perfection. The photograph sits in my jewelry box, yellowed at the edges but still sharp enough to show the younger version of myself shaking hands with the mayor at the ribbon-cutting ceremony. Pemberton Construction, building tomorrow's dreams today, the banner behind us reads, and I remember how proud Harold looked that day, how his eyes shone with the reflection of our shared ambitions made manifest. That was 1987. The year we broke ground on our first major commercial project, long before Sarah learned to walk, decades before Marcus was even a thought in someone's mind. Emma sleeps in her bouncy seat while I sort through Harold's papers in the garage, the space that used to house his workshop now converted into storage for a life that seems increasingly distant. My fingers trace the edges of business licenses, construction permits, and contracts signed with my careful signature, Dorothy M. Pemberton, President and CEO. For 32 years I ran that company with the precision of a Swiss watch and the instincts of a born negotiator. I knew every subcontractor by name, every city councilman's coffee order, every building inspector's birthday. The irony cuts deep as I hear Marcus on the phone through the open window, bragging to some colleague about his promotion to regional manager. He's $44,000 a year and thinks he's conquered the world, while I'm sitting surrounded by evidence of the multi-million-dollar empire I built from nothing but grit and Harold's steady hands. The company I sold for more money than Marcus will see in several lifetimes, the profits of which still generate enough monthly interest to fund his entire salary twice over. Dorothy. Sarah's voice carries from the kitchen, sharp with the particular irritation reserved for inconvenient interruptions. Emma needs changing and I'm late for my appointment. I close the jewelry box carefully, the photograph settling back into its velvet-lined chamber alongside Harold's cufflinks and the diamond earrings he bought me when we landed our first $1 million contract. These treasures from another lifetime, when I was someone who mattered beyond my utility as unpaid help. As I lift Emma from her seat, breathing in that sweet baby smell that transcends generations, I catch sight of my reflection in the garage window. The woman looking back at me has gray hair and age spots, hands that shake slightly and eyes that have seen too much sorrow. But underneath the surface that Marcus dismisses so easily, the foundation remains solid. The same mind that negotiated with city planners and managed construction crews, the same instincts that turned a small contracting business into a regional powerhouse. Emma coos softly against my shoulder, and I whisper into her tiny ear, "Your grandmother built skyscrapers, little one, and she's not finished building yet." The tools may have changed, but the blueprints for justice are already drawn in my mind, waiting for the right moment to break ground on a very different kind of construction project. Marcus's voice carries through the thin walls as he talks to his brother on speakerphone, their conversation peppered with casual cruelty disguised as humor. "Yeah, we've got live-in help now," he says, and I can hear the smirk in his tone. "Sarah's mom is basically our nanny. Free childcare, housework, the whole package. It's perfect. She needed somewhere to go after Harold died, and we needed help with Emma. Win-win." His brother's laughter follows, sharp and knowing, the kind of sound men make when they think they've gotten something for nothing. I stand in the hallway holding a basket of their laundry, invisible as furniture, listening to my life reduced to transaction and convenience. The irony burns like acid in my throat. I, who once negotiated construction contracts worth millions, am now discussed like a piece of inherited furniture that happened to come with useful features. Emma babbles happily from her playpen in the living room, blissfully unaware that her grandmother is being auctioned off to the lowest bidder of human dignity. The monthly statements arrive like clockwork, forwarded from my P.O. box to maintain the fiction of my diminished circumstances. I review them each month in the privacy of my small room, watching numbers that would make Marcus's ambitious heart stop beating entirely. The Pemberton Holdings dividend payments alone exceed his annual salary by a factor of 4. The real estate investments Harold and I made over 3 decades continue generating returns that compound quietly, methodically, like interest on unpaid respect. Sarah finds me in the garden that afternoon, where I'm teaching Emma to feel the texture of rose petals against her small fingers. My daughter looks tired, worn thin by the demands of new motherhood and a marriage that seems to require more performance than partnership. For a moment, I see the little girl she used to be, the one who helped me plant these very rose bushes 20 years ago, her small hands dirty with soil and purpose. "Mom," she begins, and I hear something tentative in her voice, something that reminds me of the daughter who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. I know this arrangement isn't ideal. But Marcus is right, we do need help and you do need somewhere to live. The words sound rehearsed, practiced in front of bathroom mirrors and whispered conversations behind closed doors. I nod calmly, my fingers stroking Emma's soft cheek, and wonder when my daughter learned to speak in her husband's voice instead of her own. The roses bloom around us, their beauty unchanged by the seasons' shifting dynamics, and I find comfort in their permanence. Some things endure regardless of who claims ownership. Some roots run deeper than surface arrangements. And some gardens were planted by hands that remember what it means to make beautiful things grow from nothing but vision and determination. The law office smells of leather and old paper, a scent that takes me back to the days when I sat across similar desks negotiating contracts that would shape skylines. James Peterson rises from behind his mahogany desk, his silver hair perfectly styled and his handshake firm with the confidence of a man who has spent 40 years managing other people's important affairs. "Dorothy, it's good to see you again. How are you settling in with your family?" "Well enough," I reply, settling Emma more comfortably in her carrier. She's been my perfect companion for this visit, her presence providing the ideal cover for a grandmother's supposed social call. No one questions an elderly woman bringing her grandchild to visit the family lawyer. No one suspects the documents being signed and notarized have nothing to do with simple estate management and everything to do with quiet revolution. James spreads the papers across his desk like a general reviewing battle plans. "The trust restructuring is complete," he says, his voice low and professional. "All assets remain under your direct control as specified. The property transfer documents for 1247 Magnolia Drive have been prepared and are ready for execution whenever you choose." His eyes meet mine over his reading glasses, understanding passing between us without words. He's been my attorney since the early days of Pemberton construction, has witnessed my transformation from ambitious young wife to business owner to grieving widow. He knows exactly what these papers represent. The house deed sits before me, crisp and official, waiting for a signature that will shift the balance of power with the stroke of a pen. Marcus and Sarah have no idea that their comfortable assumption of inheritance is built on legal quicksand, that the home they've claimed as their own has never actually left my control. Harold's will was structured with the same careful precision we brought to every business decision, protecting me while maintaining the illusion of traditional generational transfer. "There's one more matter," James says, producing a slim folder from his desk drawer. "The construction permits for the Sunset Acres development have been approved. Groundbreaking is scheduled for next month." I nod, remembering the phone calls I've been taking late at night, the investors who still seek my guidance despite my supposed retirement. My expertise doesn't retire simply because I've become invisible to my own family. The project manager specifically requested your consultation on the final phase planning. Emma stirs in her carrier as we conclude our business, her tiny fist closing around my finger with unconscious trust. As I carry her out into the afternoon sunshine, I feel the weight of the documents in my purse like tools waiting for the right moment of construction. Marcus thinks he holds all the cards because he controls the daily rhythm of the household. He has no idea that I've been playing a longer game, one that began decades before he was even a possibility in my daughter's future. The foundation of my plan is solid, built on legal bedrock and financial reality. Now it's simply a matter of choosing the right moment to reveal the blueprints to an audience that's forgotten what real power looks like. The dinner party is Marcus's idea, a chance to show off their perfect life to his colleagues and their wives. I watch from the kitchen doorway as Sarah sets the dining room table with my wedding china, the delicate pink roses that Harold surprised me with for our 5th anniversary, each piece chosen with such care and love. They don't ask permission to use my dishes, don't even acknowledge that these treasures belong to the woman they've relegated to kitchen duty. Dorothy. Marcus's voice cuts through the murmur of arriving guests. We need appetizers out here and Emma's crying upstairs. The casual dismissal in his tone, the way he speaks my name like it's a command rather than an address to a human being, sends something cold through my veins. I can hear his work friends in the living room, their laughter mixing with the clink of glasses filled with wine I purchased, in a house I own, celebrating a success built on foundations they cannot fathom. I tend to Emma first because her needs are pure and honest, unlike the performance unfolding downstairs. She settles quickly in my arms, her small body trusting and warm against my chest. Through the nursery window I can see the garden Harold and I planted together, the roses blooming in the fading light like promises of better seasons. Your parents think they're very clever, I whisper to her sleeping face. But cleverness and wisdom aren't the same thing, little one. When I return downstairs with the silver serving trays, another wedding gift from another lifetime, Marcus is holding court in the living room, regaling his audience with stories of his recent promotion. The key to success, he's saying, gesturing with his wine glass, is knowing how to manage resources efficiently. Take our household. We've structured things so everyone contributes according to their abilities. Sarah handles the creative side with her blog, I bring in the income, and Dorothy provides childcare and domestic support. It's a perfect modern family arrangement. The words hit like physical blows, each one landing with practiced precision. Resource management. Domestic support. Modern family arrangement. I am a human being reduced to a line item in Marcus's personal efficiency report, my 67 years of life experience condensed into a job description that begins and ends with my utility to his comfort. One of his colleagues nods approvingly. Smart thinking, Marcus. Multi-generational households are making a comeback. Another adds, free childcare is worth its weight in gold these days. I serve the appetizers with steady hands, my face a mask of pleasant servitude, while something fundamental shifts deep inside me. Each thank you from his guests feels like mockery, each compliment on the food like salt in wounds they don't even know they've inflicted. Sarah catches my eye from across the room, and for a moment I see a flicker of something. Shame? Recognition? Before she looks away, choosing silence over solidarity once again. The evening stretches ahead like a gauntlet of small humiliations, each one carefully noted and filed away in the growing archive of my resolve. Marcus wants to play the role of master of the house? Tomorrow he'll discover that masters can be made and unmade with equal precision. The morning after the dinner party dawns gray and humid, typical Florida weather that matches my mood perfectly. I'm feeding Emma her breakfast when Marcus stumbles into the kitchen, still wearing yesterday's superiority-like cologne. Dorothy, my office is a mess from last night, he says without preamble. I need you to clean it up before my conference call at 10. The words are delivered as fact rather than request, another small assumption of servitude that has become so routine he doesn't even notice his own arrogance. Of course, I reply quietly, spooning another bite of mashed banana into Emma's eager mouth. Marcus nods and pours himself coffee from the pot I made before sunrise, then disappears back upstairs to shower and prepare for his day of regional management. I continue feeding my granddaughter, each small bite a meditation on patience and purpose. Today feels different somehow, charged with the electricity that precedes storms. The phone call comes at exactly 9:30 as scheduled. James Peterson's voice carries the weight of legal authority when he speaks. Dorothy, the inspection is complete. Mr. Thompson from the City Planning Office confirmed that all permits are in order. We're ready to proceed whenever you give the word. His meaning is clear to anyone who understands the language of construction and consequence. The demolition crew can be here within 2 hours, the eviction notice can be served within 1. Marcus is on his conference call when I knock gently on his office door, Emma balanced on my hip like a shield of innocence. "Not now, Dorothy," he hisses, his hand covering the phone. "I told you to clean later." But I step inside anyway, closing the door behind me with the soft click of inevitability. His colleagues' voices continue chattering through the speakerphone about quarterly projections and market penetration, oblivious to the seismic shift about to reshape their regional manager's world. "I'm sorry to interrupt," I say, my voice carrying the calm authority of a woman who once commanded boardrooms twice this size. "But there's something we need to discuss about the house." Marcus waves me away irritably, but I continue speaking, pulling the deed from my cardigan pocket like a magician revealing the card that changes everything. "You see, Marcus, there seems to be some confusion about ownership." The words hang in the air like smoke. Marcus's face goes through several expressions: irritation, confusion, and then something approaching understanding as he reads the official document I've placed on his desk. His conference call continues in the background, voices discussing productivity metrics while his own world shifts on its axis. "This can't be right," he whispers, but I can see in his eyes that he knows it is. The deed is crystal clear, signed and notarized, incontrovertible proof that 1247 Magnolia Drive belongs to Dorothy May Pemberton, not Sarah, not Marcus, not the happy couple he's been playing in his head. Just me. The invisible help. The free childcare. The woman he's been managing like a resource instead of recognizing as the owner of every stick of furniture he's touched, every room he's occupied, every breath of air he's taken for granted. The silence that follows revelation has weight and texture, settling over Marcus's office like dust after demolition. Emma babbles softly in my arms, the only sound of innocence in a room suddenly heavy with the debris of shattered assumptions. Marcus stares at the deed as if willing the words to rearrange themselves into something that makes sense within his carefully constructed reality. His conference call continues in the background, colleagues discussing market strategies while his own foundation crumbles beneath him. "I don't understand," he says finally, and for the first time in months his voice lacks its characteristic condescension. "Sarah said, when Harold died she inherited." The words trail off as understanding dawns like a cold sunrise. Sarah appears in the doorway, drawn by the unusual quiet, her face already showing the recognition of someone who has been dreading this moment without quite knowing why. "The house was never yours to inherit," I explain gently, settling Emma in her carrier before taking the chair across from Marcus's desk. "Harold and I structured our estate very carefully. Sarah receives her inheritance when she turns 45, assuming she demonstrates the maturity to handle such responsibility. Until then, everything remains in trust, with me as the sole trustee and beneficiary." The legal language rolls off my tongue like poetry, each word chosen with the precision of someone who learned long ago that power and its proper exercise require careful vocabulary. Marcus's hands shake slightly as he rifles through the documents, searching for some loophole, some escape from the reality reshaping itself around him. Sarah enters the room fully now, her face pale with the understanding of how completely they've misunderstood their situation. "Mom, why didn't you tell us?" The question carries decades of hurt and confusion, the voice of a daughter who has spent years making assumptions about love and legacy without ever asking the crucial questions. "You never asked," I reply simply. "You both decided what was true and acted accordingly. You assigned me a role, unpaid help, grateful dependent, and I let you believe it because I wanted to see who you really were when you thought you held all the power. The truth settles between us like judgment, not cruel but absolute. Emma reaches for the sunbeam streaming through the office window, her small fingers grasping at light with the pure desire of innocence, and I'm reminded that some truths must be spoken aloud before they can illuminate anything. Marcus finally looks up from the papers, his face cycling through emotions like weather patterns, anger, disbelief, calculation, and finally something approaching respect. "What do you want?" he asks, and I hear in his voice the recognition that the game has changed completely, that he is no longer the one making rules but the one learning to follow them. I smile gently, the expression of a woman who has been patient long enough to earn the right to justice served with dignity rather than revenge delivered with cruelty. "What I want," I tell him, "is what I've always wanted, to be treated like a human being instead of a resource to be managed, to be seen instead of invisible, to matter in my own home instead of existing solely for your convenience." The afternoon light shifts through the window, and for the first time in months, I feel like the room is beginning to see me clearly. 6 months later, the morning sun streams through the kitchen windows as I prepare Emma's breakfast, but everything has changed in ways both subtle and profound. The high chair sits in the same spot, the routine remains familiar, but the atmosphere carries a different quality entirely, one of respect earned rather than service demanded. Sarah enters the kitchen with genuine gratitude in her voice when she says, "Thank you for watching Emma today, Mom. Marcus and I should be back from the counseling session by noon." The marriage counselor was my suggestion, delivered not as ultimatum but as loving guidance. "If you want to rebuild trust," I had told them both in the weeks following our reckoning, "you need to learn how to see each other clearly. And that includes learning how to see me." They had accepted my wisdom with the humility of people who had discovered that their assumptions about power and family had been built on quicksand rather than solid ground. Marcus appears in the doorway now, his demeanor transformed by months of careful reconstruction. "Dorothy," he says, and the name carries respect rather than dismissal, "I wanted to thank you again for the business referral. The Pemberton Holdings project is exactly the kind of account I've been hoping for." His gratitude is genuine, born from the understanding that the invisible help he once dismissed controls a network of business relationships worth more than his previous salary. I nod graciously, pleased to see him learning that power shared multiplies rather than diminishes. The afternoon finds me in the garden with Emma, teaching her to smell the roses that Harold and I planted in what feels like another lifetime. She laughs with pure delight as a butterfly lands on her tiny outstretched finger, and I'm struck by how much joy exists in moments when people treat each other with the dignity inherent in simply being human. Sarah joins us, settling onto the garden bench with the comfortable ease of a daughter who has rediscovered her mother rather than merely her childcare provider. "I'm sorry, Mom," she says quietly, words that have taken months to find their proper shape. "I lost sight of who you were, who you've always been." The apology carries weight because it comes with understanding rather than mere regret. I cover her hand with mine, feeling the decades of love that no amount of misunderstanding could ever truly break. "We all lose sight of things sometimes," I reply. "What matters is learning to see clearly again." As evening settles over the house that remains unquestionably mine, I reflect on the construction project that mattered most, not buildings made of steel and concrete, but relationships rebuilt on foundations of mutual respect. Emma sleeps peacefully in her crib, surrounded by love that acknowledges rather than assumes, values rather than utilizes. I have reclaimed not just my authority but my visibility, proved that wisdom and patience can accomplish what anger and revenge never could. The deed sits safely in my jewelry box now, no longer a weapon but simply a document, proof that some foundations, once properly laid, can support generations of growth. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've ever been dismissed because of your age or reduced to your utility rather than valued for your wisdom, know that you are not alone. Your experience matters, your voice deserves to be heard, and your dignity is non-negotiable. Share this story if it speaks to you, because sometimes the most powerful revolution begins with simply refusing to remain unseen. Follow for more stories of quiet strength, hidden power, and the beautiful justice that comes when patience meets its proper moment. Your grandmother's story matters, and so do you.